Hello, welcome to today's video on how to draw amethyst. So amethyst is definitely by far my favorite crystal. I've got all kinds of them. I think this is my most recent amethyst crystal. And this one is one of my first largest piece anyways. I know I had another piece before this, but this was actually gifted to me, which I love, and I have kept it with me ever since. So today I'm gonna draw an amethyst crystal. So I did print out a picture, just that's how I work. I can definitely work from, I'll have these crystals in front of me too, so I'll be working from them as well, but I like working for pictures and just like having it right next to it. Just makes it easy for me. Like when I'm working on a drawing, if I'm not sure if it's done yet, I'll take a picture of it on my phone and look at it there, and that's when I know like if it's done or not. Like there's just something that happens to the mind, like it plays a trick on your head and you're like, okay, now I can see what I need to do. So I have just a regular pencil here that I've been tracing out, or sketching out over here. I'm working on a regular notebook today, and then I also have pencils. I've got a variety of colors. Obviously lots of purple, and there's some brown, some blue, some green, and this is light flesh color, so some light peach. And let me see if I can find, I'm also going to have some deep indigo. It really doesn't matter the specific colors you have. It matters a lot more about the contrast in your piece. So as long as you've got like a couple colors that you can just keep layering over each other to get some areas super dark and some areas super light, then you'll be good to go. So I'll flip this around, we'll see the drawing and the crystals, and we'll get started. Alright, so it just generally takes me a second here to get it set up right. And this should be interesting since I'm using a notebook today. I haven't done that with this tripod before. One of these days I'll get a nicer tripod that will work better for my setup. So I'm not like trying to draw around a phone. Okay, so we've got large crystal in front of me and the smaller one in front of me as well. And I chose these two because they both have different qualities to them. As you could see, like one is rougher and one has the smoother edges to it. So to get started, I just started drawing out these lines. So you'll want to look for like these larger areas here. So I just started looking for those areas in the rock, and so a lot of it's going to be like these triangles and these points here, right? Because that's what an amethyst is. So as you jump on live, like say hi or something so I know you're here. So I know who's watching. Okay, so we're gonna just keep going through, we'll just keep adding these little points. So if you think of like a pyramid, like that, a lot of these points start like that. And so they'll just be different like variations of that throughout the project. So like we have this larger one up here, we've got this with several sides over here. And I'm just looking at my picture and at the crystal itself to see, because some of this is kind of dark and you can't really quite tell what it is. So I'm looking between the two. But I see, you know, another one here where it comes down. And some of it will just end up sketching over with a dark color. And so it won't be... it won't stand out quite as much, and that's okay too. And this I'm going to put a little bit more detail into here. It's really all just about like these little shapes, just taking your time and noticing these different shapes on this larger piece here. And if you wanted to, you could even just like block out half of it and just, you know, do a small piece of amethyst just to get started, just a little bit of a piece. And that would get your start into your project. It'd be a more manageable chunk. And so you just keep doing these small chunks, and you just keep looking for the different lines. And it's tedious. I mean, these kinds of projects are definitely tedious. That there's no doubt there. Okay, so and then on this one down here, so this one, it obviously comes to a point, right? So we start there, just start with the outline of it. Even just start with the outline, and then you can work the details in after that. And on this one, since it's got the more grainy edges, you can add those in. And so this comes up here like this. And I'm just going super light on these. Okay. So I'm going to start adding in a little color just to show you what this would look like. And so when I sketch out a piece, like I'll start with just this, and I have it a lot darker than what I would normally have it, just so the camera can pick it up, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it. Like some of these lines are really hard to see on the camera, so this is a lot darker than what I would have it. But I just wanted to show what it looks like. So I'm gonna start with this one down here. I might as well just leave it where it is. And so you just start with these triangles up here, right? So you can see the different, I guess it would be called facets, something like that. Just starting with those. And so there's darker ones on the back side and where the light's hitting it, which will change depending on where you are and where your crystal is, but you can see how this one is not purple. I mean, there's a little purple to it, but if you were to draw this whole thing purple, it wouldn't look realistic. So for this one here, I'm using gray, and I'll put just a touch of this purple in it. And layer over some white to blend it all together. The white will, of course, lighten it, but it'll also blend the colors together. And so for down here on, you've got another one here that would be darker. I also see a lot of blues, and like I said, that'll change based on lighting and the shape of the crystal and what you've got around you. But there's a lot of blues in here, and so I use blue and I use some light peach, and I'll go outside the lines because I'm working around a tripod. And so just adding in these little extra colors just makes the detail all that better. And so like up here, I'm going to add in deep indigo to make it even darker, because it looks more realistic when you get it super dark. Like when you have that contrast between the light and the dark pieces or sections. Okay, and then I will start the rest of this. So just to get started, we'll fill in the darker spaces. And these are the spaces like in here where it's darker, like then we'll work on these lighter spaces. And these just pretty much, I mean, they have a rough edge, but they kind of butt up to this facet here. And you can change directions of where your pencil is, like see how I did this one here and this one here, and that'll help change how it looks to be moving. So it's that movement of where your eye is directed to. And I'm just following shapes. I'm just looking at the shapes of the crystal, where the dark areas are, where the light areas are. So I'm just looking for the little details. And it takes time to learn to find those details. So you won't find all the little details the first go around. It's not something well, I won't say it's not something. Some people are more detail oriented, and so it's going to be easy to pick out the little details. Other people, it'll take time, and it'll also take time depending on your subject. So someone who's drawing a horse and has been around horses their entire life, it'll be easier to spot the different shading and shapes on a horse's face than someone who has never even seen a horse in person. And same with crystals. So someone who loves amethyst and has maybe drawn 50 amethyst crystals is going to have an easier time than someone who has not. And that's just how it works. I mean, it's practice just like anything else. And so now I'm adding in some of the lighter areas. And I'm just using a lighter color of purple. And I will also be using this white. And depending on your paper color, it will be easier to see it. But it is blending it a little bit out. And with pencils, it's all about layers too. So the more layers you can do, the better it will look. So like this is not finished. But if I do a few more layers, it'll get closer. And you can just keep switching between colors as you see the different nuances in the piece. You just keep going through the different colors you see as you see them. There's not a not a solid, you have to do this first and that second and that third. There are many ways to do the same piece. Like everyone's going to work a little bit differently. And see, now I'm just going over different places and darkening them up. And it's this darkening that really starts to make things come to life, because it's that contrast, and we need contrast in drawings. We need contrast in everyday life to be able to see the different lines. Like that, if you take a picture and take out most of the contrast, it's harder to tell what it is or what's going on or the colors. And it doesn't look three-dimensional. It's when you get more contrast involved that it starts to take shape. And even on this camera, doing it live, it looks different in person than it does on the camera. And so that's why sometimes I'll take a picture of what I'm working on to look at it under a camera to see exactly where it is that I need to work on it more. And it's usually that contrast piece. It's usually that the camera shows you the reality of where you are lacking contrast in your piece. All right, but enough with this one. I'm going to move on to this one to show you too. Okay, so just like this one, we're going to start with some darker areas, and we just start shading them in. So I know that some of these, hey, thanks for watching. I know that some of these areas are darker. If you join live, just drop me a comment so I know who you are and if you're following along or not, if you're also drawing with me. So I'm just filling in some of the darker areas. So we've already got a basic sketch going here. And so now I'm just taking and filling in some of the darker areas. And I think I'm going to just focus on one section so that it's easier to get through in this video. These are all like little trial and error videos, seeing what's working and what's not for being on a live video. So let me know what you like about it, what we could change up about it. And so for some of these facets here, so for like this one, I am putting pink down first, like a light peach. And so I'm going to do that for each of these. And these are all just that layering. And on top of that peach, I'm doing blue. This is a light turquoise blue. And you might look at these facets and think, oh, it's white, or oh, it's gray. And at first, it definitely looks like that. Like on this picture, it definitely looks like that, and some of them will be that bright, but many times looking at it in real life, it's got a color to it. It's reflecting the purple, it's reflecting the things around it in the room, and so you don't want to just leave it white. All right, so we're gonna keep going here and start shading in some of these crystals. And there's always going to be, on these little faucets, there's always going to be a little white section. That's just how the light reflects off. There's always going to be a dark one and a light one. And sometimes that light one will be really light and be almost white, and sometimes it'll just be a lighter color of purple. And as I'm going, I'm still seeing different spaces where I can do these little pyramid type shapes. still seeing those little sections. Like, you will keep seeing those little sections throughout this entire project. And this one's a little bit lighter here towards the front. Like, you can see some more of the lighter crystal. But the tops are still a darker purple. Like, you can still see the corners and the edges. It's not the entire faucet that is dark or light. And these are definitely, they take a while. Which is why sometimes, another reason why I like to have reference photos too, even if it's something that I'm working on from real life. Just having that reference photo, because you're gonna eventually get up and walk around and stretch your legs. You're gonna get up and go have dinner, come back to it an hour later, and you'll sit in a different spot, or the light will have changed, and so you won't know where you're looking at or what you're working on. So it's always good to have those reference photos so that you can see where you started. So you can always look back where you started, to know where to move on from there. You can keep working on it from the real life piece, but just having that picture will always, get you back on track. And some of them, just the way the crystal is formed, some of it will be naturally lighter. And so you can add, if you start with a base of white and then put the purple on top and then layer white over it again, that'll help you tone it down so that it looks more opaque. And if you press harder, you'll get darker color, of course, and you press lighter, you'll get a lighter color. And if you press lighter, you'll also be able to get more layers in onto your paper. The paper has a tooth, so it's basically capturing all the color from the pencil in the paper. So this is a super smooth paper, but some that I use are super rough. This is almost like sandpaper, and so you're able to add more layers in with different types of paper, and by going light on the first few layers, so that you can build up the layers and just slowly keep adding colors. And even on some of these darker sections, you can still see some blues and some pinks in them. And adding in blues, pinks, and even some browns will help you keep getting that depth and that texture. And most drawings go through what is referred to as the ugly phase. You'll go through, and the first, hour of your drawing, you'll just be like, why am I even bothering? I'm just gonna throw this out. But don't. Just keep going. Keep adding layers, and eventually it will look like something you actually want to share, because it's just part of the process. I don't know. It's just most drawings have just that phase where you just don't get why it's not looking the way you want it to. And then you just keep going, you keep at it, and all of a sudden there's this like tipping point where just the magic happens and it looks amazing after that. And so you have to keep going through the ugly phase in order to get to that space. So don't be discouraged if, you've been working on it for 15-20 minutes and it's just not looking like what you thought it would. Don't get discouraged. Just keep at it. Keep trying, and you will get to the space you want to be at where it actually looks really good. And that's another place to take a picture too, actually. If it's just looking absolutely horrible, or you think that it's looking horrible, take a picture of it and then go from there. Like, see what it really looks like under a camera lens and go from there. Because many times you'll find that it actually looks pretty good when you take a picture of it. And there's just something about... And maybe if any of you are photographers, you would have a better reasoning behind this. If there is something scientific about it, or if we artists have just tapped into something random. But there's something about it when you take a picture of your artwork, you just see it differently. It looks different, and so you can get a better feel of where you're at in the project. And some of these places I'm pushing down pretty hard because of the type of paper it is. Because it's super smooth and it's not going to hold the amount of layers that I would like it to. So I'm just pushing down a little harder anyways, just to get the point across of, no pun intended, of what I want it to look like. And these crystals back here look a little bit muddier, a little darker. That could just mean I need to clean my crystals more often, but it's actually the way that this particular crystal formed. They're just they've got a little bit more darker, muddy tones to them. Okay, so I would just keep going with this. I would just keep going. Yeah, we've actually been going for half an hour. So I would just keep layering this. It takes a while to get through these. But see, a half an hour went quickly. So I would just keep with these same little shapes, these same little triangles, these same little points, and just doing one side darker and one side lighter for the where the light hits the crystal. Whoops. All right, I guess it's time to go then because my pencil just dropped on the floor. Just keep adding in these layers with these pinks and these blues, and don't forget, oof, my pencils are flying every direction now. And don't forget the super dark areas with some indigos. Okay, so I would just keep going with that all over this, and I'd love to see what you come up with, and I'll share what I finish with. So I will see you guys next week. If you want to keep going with these videos, send me some ideas of what we should draw next, and I hope to see you back here later in the group. Bye!